to our third in our small business webinar series, which we are focusing on the domestic and family violence provisions that have been introduced into the Fair Work Act. So before we commence, I would like to acknowledge that this webinar is being held on the traditional land of the Kaurna people, and we acknowledge them as custodians of and respect their spiritual and cultural relations. We pay our respects to their elders past and present, and we do extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander. So today, as I said, we're going to be covering the Fair Work Act amendments that have just come into just past Parliament. So we're going to be looking a bit about the context of domestic and family place, as well as discussing the leave, such as the criteria for taking the leave, the payment and notice and evidence and requirements, and also giving you some thoughts around how to respond if one of your employees requests this kind of leave. So this presentation is obviously general information, and if you do seek actual legal advice, please do so. Seek further specialised advice as to your particular business. Also a bit of a content warning. If you do find any of the content today distressing, please do take the time to step away and seek the support that you need. Remember all those resources such as 1-800-RESPECT. So firstly, before we get stuck into the content, just a little bit about my working with Sacha and myself. So I'm a lawyer here at the Centre. I've been here about 3 years. And we're a service that provides free and confidential legal advice and advice to women and grown-up members of the union. We do provide advice to all genders. We also are funded to give these free advice sessions to small business employers to help you help your employees and to make sure that you understand your obligations as an employer. So we're funded through some grants from the state and federal governments, as well as other smaller grants from SA unions and the like. And commonly, when we're here providing advice, we're giving advice on workplace issues like wage theft, unlawful dismissals, discrimination, and sexual harassment. We also have an advocacy team that does project work about the themes that we see at the centre. And we also have an education and training and they provide fee-for-service training for businesses like yourselves about workplace rights and your obligations, as well as reviews of policies and other things to help you help them. Plenty of information on our website if you're interested in learning more about this. But today we're of course here to talk about domestic and family violence. So we'll start off with the legal definition under the Fair Work Act. So when we're talking about family and domestic violence, we're talking about violent, threatening or abusive behaviour, close relative of an employee seeks to coerce or control that employee, or seeks or causes them to causes them harm or causes them to be fearful. And a close relative of the employee is a person defined as someone who's a member of their immediate family, or someone who is related to the employee according to Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander kinship rules. So when we're saying immediate family, that's further defined in the Fair Work Act to say that it's a spouse, covenant, child, parent, grandparent, grandchild, or sibling, or the same relationship to their spouse or de facto parent. So that's the current definition that I would like. The new changes that will come into effect extended that definition to also include a close relative. So it will include the conduct of a current or former intimate partner of the employee or a member of the employee's household. So it's recognising that someone who might not meet the current definition of a de facto of the employee, like for example, someone who isn't living with the employee, but someone with whom the employee is in an ongoing sexual relationship, that person is also considered to be will also be covered by those definitions there. So that's a change, but an important one. So domestic and family violence, more broadly in a non-legal way, it occurs when an intimate or within an intimate or familiar relationship, when one person tries to gain and maintain control over the other person. So it's a pattern of behaviour, and it can take many forms, including physical violence, threats, humiliation, and isolation. And unfortunately, it looks like the graphic I have here. Oh, there it is. Isn't that fancy? So it can include all of those different things: social, emotional, physical, cultural patterns or impacts of behaviour, financial control, psychological impacts or coercion, and of course, sexual assault and coercion or control as well. So it can take many different forms, and of course, it can take it can be within all sorts of close relationships as well, including same-sex and LGBTIQ plus intimate relationships. It can take the form of elder abuse or violence directed against children. It could be between a carer and a person they're caring for. Throughout this topic, we will generally be talking about men as the perpetrators and women as the victims, but we of course recognise that those behaviours can occur between and against all genders. It's recognised that women and gender diverse people experience domestic and family violence rates much higher than men. And it's also good to remember that intersectionality has an impact as well. So that means that one person has many different factors and facets of their life, including their identity, their systems and structures of their particular backgrounds. So those different kinds of systems and structures can intersect and shape a person's experience. For example, if it is a woman or a gender diverse person, and also comes from one of the groups that is statistically more likely to suffer domestic and family violence, like from a Indigenous or cold background, or has a disability, all those factors combined mean that that person is going to have a different experience than one other person. It's just obviously making the point that it affects everyone differently. So start with statistics. I think we hopefully all are aware of how much of an issue domestic and family violence is in Australia. But to make the point, on average, at least one woman a week is killed by another form of partner in Australia. 1 in 4 women have experienced physical violence by an intimate partner in Australia in their lifetime. Approximately 13 women are hospitalised each day as a result of domestic family violence. And the ABC News has a ticker that you can log on any time of day and see how many police matters have already been reported. And as of 45 minutes ago, and I had a look already today, police would have dealt with over 350 domestic and family violence matters today. So an absolutely huge problem. And that is why these laws have been introduced to help deal with this issue. Another interesting statistic: it takes on average around 7 attempts to leave an abusive relationship. It costs a person about $18,000 and about 141 hours to actually manage to take all the actions they need to take to leave that relationship. So I think that's a really important statistic. It really shows the time and financial impact on a person and how that may, you can obviously see how that would interact with their work life as well. So, there's obviously a profound and long-term effect of gender violence on all aspects of a person's life, including their health, well-being, their family, community, and more broadly society. So some more statistics there. That is the 3rd greatest health risk for women aged between 25 and 44. probably actually didn't know that when I was preparing it today. It's a leading driver of homelessness in women. 62% are subject to intimate partner violence during employment, they're employed. And a really important thing there that as well that a woman is more likely to disclose the domestic and family violence to a colleague rather than a manager, supervisor, or HR. So it's really important when we're thinking about your response to business today to consider not only what do you know as council manager, but do your other staff as well. Are they aware of these things and how to appropriately respond if they're receiving that disclosure? So it's also really important to think that you know, within small businesses, quite often you're in a really close-knit small team. But it's, you know, there's no typical standard person that uses or experiences domestic and family violence. It can happen within any relationship, and it can present itself at any workplace. So, and if an employee is experiencing domestic and family violence, it will have an impact on the workplace. They're going to, whether they can help it or not, they'll be bringing that to their work. And if they're bringing that to their work, whether it's because they need to tell someone at work, or they're perhaps justifiably distracted or not able to perform their best, if you become aware of it within the context of your workplace, it does become your business. So if you see it or hear about it, it does become your business, and that can be confronting as well. I think a lot of people, you know, there's a real stigma about talking about these kind of things, and managers or workplaces can be hesitant to get involved in what is seen as a personal matter. At the end of the day, you as an employer have an obligation to your employees to help to provide them with a safe and healthy workplace. And really recognizing the impact of domestic and family violence on an employee is part of that broader obligation. So from the business side of view, domestic and family violence has a huge impact on businesses, particularly small businesses as well. So these stats here are taken from some research reported in the ABC. You can see the references there, but more than half of Australian small business owners suspect that one of their staff members is experiencing domestic violence. What a huge statistic. More than half. That's amazing. And 40% indicated that they'd lost money because of workers suffering domestic violence. So I assume that maybe through things like absenteeism or presenteeism, where employees are able to give their full capacity due to the impacts they're suffering. And another statistic there from the Champions of Change Coalition, domestic violence leads to lower productivity, and it's estimated to cost businesses about $2 billion annually. So really, as we'll go through these changes, hopefully we can see that not only are they obviously important and very important and beneficial for the worker, but also hopefully going to help you as a business to minimize some of these impacts on your staff, on your workplace culture, and ultimately on your productivity and your bottom line. So there's a really excellent report that I will be referring to throughout the presentation, and it's called I should put it in a bigger font, Safe, Thriving, Secure Family Violence Leave and Workplace Supports in Australia. So it came out before the most recent laws have been introduced, but it really goes into some detail about the impacts on the employee within the workplace and supports that you can put in place. And there's some excellent quotes and case studies in there from the people experiencing the violence themselves. So this study found that not only does domestic and family violence impact on an employee's engagement in the workforce, but also on their performance and their career progression. It found that workplaces are really common sites of domestic and family violence. Perpetrators will try to infiltrate the workplace to, further perpetrate that control and coercion on the person experiencing it, to try and disrupt their participation engagement on the workplace. So there really is a growing recognition and consensus that workplaces really have a critical role in both responding to this domestic and family violence through supporting employees. So, and additionally, the economic benefits of paid employment are huge in the context of a woman's economic security. So if a woman does not have the economic security to feel that she can safely leave the relationship or the home, you can imagine that will really affect her choices and her ability to actually be able to safely leave. So it's recognizing that by giving paid leave to workers, that is going to increase a woman's financial security, hopefully keep her connection with the workplace so that she can more quickly recover into her new life. Excuse me. So amongst all this, of course, it's going to be really important to think about what workplace policies and support practices you have within your workplace to be ready to receive such a disclosure and to support those employees through the taking of the leave and you know their journey, if you will, throughout this tough time in their lives. So yeah, that report is full of really powerful quotes, and I will have a few throughout this presentation, but one there from a worker. The domestic and family violence so massively impacted my confidence. I was just so busy staying alive that I couldn't give my full effort. Yeah. So turning to the new leave provisions, employees will be able to access 10 days of paid family and domestic violence leave in a 12-month period. So this is quite a big change because it will be available for casual employees who do not have access to any other kinds of paid leave at the moment, as well as full-time and part-time employees. So yeah, really big change. It's available for casual employees just the same as any other employee. It's also not going to be prorated for part-time or casual employees. So that 10 days is available to every single one of your staff, no matter if they're part-time, casual, or full-time. It's also available upfront. So unlike other kinds of leave, like annual leave or sick leave, it doesn't accrue. So that means if a worker starts a job, they immediately have that entitlement to 10 days paid leave sitting there for them to use straight away if they need to. And whilst it won't accrue up to that 10 days, it won't accrue year to year if it's not used. So it's not a cumulative entitlement. It's available for that 10 months to be used. And then once the 10 months ticks over, the 12 months ticks over, another 10 days will, they'll be entitled to another 10 days, but they will never be entitled to more than 10 days accrued leave. So this leave accrues each year on the employee's work anniversary. And if you've got an employee who's already employed when the paid leave entitlement starts in February or August, they access the 10 full days on the start date. So this entitlement, it's just the government's recognising it's going to take businesses a bit of time to implement these provisions into payroll, etc. They'll be available from the 1st of February for employees of non-small businesses, so large businesses, and for the small businesses with less than 15 employees, employees will be entitled to this leave from the 1st of August next year. So when we're talking about this 10 days of paid leave, that entitlement will accrue for your employees on the 1st of August next year. So yeah, taking the leave. So I think it's important as well to remember that at the moment, under the National Employment Standards, your employees do still have the right to 5 days unpaid paid leave. So whatever we're talking about here, we're predicting ahead to next year when they've got this entitlement to the 10 days paid leave, but it's equally applicable if your employees are accessing that for an entitlement to unpaid leave. So taking the leave. So employees can apply for this leave if they need to do something to deal with the impact of family and domestic violence, and it's not practical for them to do so during work hours. So obviously, if your employee is part-time, they may be able to schedule some appointments around their work hours, but it's recognising that it can be really difficult to get those kind of appointments or make those arrangements around someone's work hours when there's so much else going on. So that is why this leave entitlement is there. So those kind of things could include making arrangements for their safety, or close relatives such as their children, such as moving house, finding a safe place to stay, attending court hearings, accessing police services or counselling, or attending appointments with medical, financial or legal advisors and professionals. So all of those kind of things that they might have to schedule and do to help them deal with the violence and get away safely. Notice and evidence requirements. So as with any kind of leave, the employee should notify you as soon as possible that they need to take the leave. And if they know how long they need it for, to tell you as well what they expect that the length of the leave to be. So you can ask for evidence. Yeah, I think it's really important as we're going through this to understand the practicality of the situation, and that if someone needs this leave, they may not have a lot of notice to give themselves. So be mindful of that. In terms of the evidence should be enough to convince a reasonable person that the leave was taken to deal with the impact of the family and domestic violence. So this could include documents issued by the police, such as an intervention order or a police report. It could be letters or documents issued from or sent out by the court. It could be family violence support services documents if they've accessed that service. It could even be a statutory declaration, medical or doctor's certificates, or perhaps a letter from their psychologist or psychiatrist if they're seeking that support. So there's no set list of what is and isn't available. It just, if you feel that you want to ask for evidence, it should just be enough to convince a reasonable person that yes, they're taking this leave for legitimate reasons. So as I said, I think it's really important to consider the burden that you're placing on the employee by asking for this evidence. And I don't mean to say that it is a burden to provide any evidence. Of course, you as a business owner have to be sure that your staff aren't taking that leave for illegitimate purposes. But just consider in the context, what do you really need, and what is just a bit too much in terms of the context of what the employee is experiencing. So if you're asking for the employee to kind of provide too much evidence, you're kind of going against what is a common kind of trauma-informed approach that in the first instance you should believe the victim and understand it's hard for them to even tell you about this violence they're experiencing. So I would suggest that in the first instance, perhaps put the evidence to the side, let them take the leave, let them do what they have to do, and then later down the track, if you think that you do need evidence, approach it in a sensitive way then. So I also wanted to draw out some evidence from the Safe Thriving and Secure report that I referred to earlier. So in this report, respondents were asked about if they'd taken leave, how much leave they took, what they're required to give to their employers, and how that made them feel. Again, I recommend you read the whole report. But for instance, with the people surveyed, their workplaces had available as paid leave somewhere from 1 day to 3 months of paid leave. And I think the average was about 14 days of paid leave available to these employees. And I think, yeah, that the average there was a range as well of the length of leave that employees had taken. But in that survey of the people that responded as being the employees that had experienced family domestic violence, only about half of them were asked to provide documentation. And there was real discussion as well about how that made them feel. So about nearly 17% there felt that being asked to provide documentation was actually a barrier to the leave, or something that they didn't feel comfortable doing, but felt that they had no choice but to provide. So yeah, a couple of quotes there. I really didn't want that information on the HR system, but I didn't feel like I had much of a choice. And another person there obviously was in a position where they were immediately relieved by their own employer because of their injuries. There was another example, perhaps where the burden has been too much. So an employee's manager, she asked for domestic leave to attend an AVO hearing. Her manager asked as a copy of the intervention order as proof. But after she provided that, she was asked to provide a letter from the police as well to say that she had attended the hearing. She couldn't get that information from the police. So she was refused the leave and was told she could only take annual leave or leave without pay. And that pattern continued throughout her court process, which was quite a long time. And there were other issues there as well. For instance, when she had the family court hearings, they'd literally print court on her roster for all the other employees to see, which made her feel extremely uncomfortable. So it really is, again, surely in that instance, the proof that she had a hearing was enough. Did the manager really need confirmation as well that she had actually attended the hearing? That was not something she could easily get, and obviously caused her a lot more angst and distress. So turning to payment, but for part-time employees, will take leave at their full pay rate for the hours that they would have worked if they went on the leave. And casual employees will be paid at their full pay rate for the hours they were rostered to work in the period they took leave. And of course, we're talking again here about the new laws coming into effect as of the 1st of August for small businesses next year. Currently, casual employees only have unpaid leave. When we're talking about their full pay rate, this is the base pay rate plus any incentive-based payments and bonuses, loadings, allowances, penalty rates, or any other amounts. So really the employee should not be missing out any of the payment they would have received had they worked that shift. So just a bit of an example, Kia is a casual employee in a takeaway shop. She's rostered to work the following week, but she needs to take domestic and family violence leave. So in that instance, her employer needs to pay her base rate of pay plus her 25% of casual loading for the whole 25 hours that she was rostered to work. And if her hours were, say, outside of her ordinary hours, then she should have been paid penalty rates for, say, working after 10 p.m. She would also need to be paid those penalty rates as well. So it's really is what she would have been paid had she worked her rostered hours. So I also wanted to talk about confidentiality. So as you can imagine, any information related to an employee's experience of family and domestic violence is extremely sensitive. As I've said, it's a really huge deal for a lot of people to disclose that they're suffering or experiencing this violence in the first instance. So they will also be extremely concerned about, now you've got that information, what are you going to do with it? And it really could have adverse consequences for the employee if it's mishandled. So it's obviously extremely important for the safety of the person that they've disclosed this, but it can also be difficult to manage for you as a manager or employer, as well as the co-workers. So have a think about what needs to be documented, what has to be shared, and who has the records and who can access them. So I suggest that no one should have access to this information unless they really absolutely necessarily need to within your business. So for instance, that previous example of the woman who had, caught plastered all over her rosters, everyone in her workplace was aware of what she was going through. I don't think that's appropriate. It really should be more of a confidential matter between you and your employee. For instance, some businesses are, using the term kind of like special leave in their payroll instead of having a family domestic violence leave category. That might be one way you could cater for this leave, without disclosing to everyone who's handling the payslips, whatever, that your employee is taking this leave. So be guided by your own policies on keeping personal information. But just remember that what, how, and where you keep your notes of what's going on is really important. Another consideration is making sure that the person is comfortable with what you've written and what you'll do with that information. So be really upfront with your employee about what information you're taking down and where you're storing it and why. And yeah, this is a really great catchphrase, nothing about them without them. So make sure that the employee is really consenting and informed about every step of the disclosure process. It's also important to note that records and reports of domestic and family violence and what is observed or reported that has been perpetrated can become part of evidence if it's required to support an application for an intervention order, a breach of one, a DBO. So again, I think it's important to keep this information, but just make sure the handling of that information is confidential, and yeah, only accessed on a real needs to know basis. So yeah, the Fair Work Act again, that you must not, without the consent of the employee, very important, use such information in relation to their entitlement to take leave in any other way that unless they give consent. So you definitely cannot use the information to take adverse action against an employee. So I wasn't planning on going too much into adverse action and the consequences of taking that against your employee, but basically that's saying if an employee comes to you and asks for this leave, you can't disadvantage them in any way. You can't cut their shifts, cut their pay, treat them differently from any other employee, discriminate against them in any way. Otherwise, they may have what's called a general protections claim against you in the Fair Work Commission. So generally speaking, if an employee raises their entitlements to this leave, you cannot then take adverse action against them for that. It's a fundamental workplace right of the employee to request this leave. And yeah, another important thing in the Fair Work Act there, turning back to that, nothing in the Act prevents, or this subdivision prevents you from dealing with the information you're given by the employee if you need to disclose that information under Australian law, or if it's necessary to protect the life, health, or safety of an employee or another person. So yeah, just recognizing, again, that would be a very difficult situation to be in, that you can disclose that information in those extreme circumstances. So moving, I guess, to, if an employee does come to you and ask for this leave, what should your immediate reaction be? And at this point, I'd just like to note, we do have an entire training package available for businesses to respond, recognize, respond, and refer in the context of domestic and family violence in the workplace. And it goes into this kind of thing in a lot more depth. And I've picked out a few points, but I don't want to do it just injustice by going into these things too much. But basically, and when I'm saying that the training deals with things like implementing a domestic and family violence plan and implementing policies and really recognizing and proactively supporting your employees. Where I guess today we're just talking about the leave, and I wanted to give you a few tips as well. You know what to do if an employee approaches you and says that they need this leave. So in summary, I guess your aim is to establish an informed, trusting and confidential and safe space for the person disclosing the violence. So for instance, if you'd like to think about the example I mentioned earlier of Kia, who works in a takeaway shop, have a think about it. If she's come to you and asked for this leave, might not be in the right context in the middle of the busy workplace. Perhaps consider if you can have the meeting somewhere private and comfortable. Make sure that you've got enough time to speak properly about what she needs. Don't be in a rush about these kind of things. And again, just remember, it can take a lot of courage for someone to disclose that they're suffering or experiencing domestic and family violence. And obviously they're already going through an extremely hard time. So remember, being genuine and empathetic. The person-centered approach, again, is something that is gone into more depth in this training. But really it's saying that it's an approach to shared decision-making. So it honors the personal choice of the employee, and it's a way of kind of identifying support and effectively communicating the options, but remembering that your employee is best placed to know what they need. So they're the ones who've had to deal with this violence. They're going to know what is best for them in terms of escaping it and dealing with it and dealing with any risks of violence occurring within the workplace. Again, thinking of Kia in the takeaway shop, she may be worried that the person perpetrating the violence, say her former partner, might come into the shop. This is where something like a domestic and family violence safety plan is really important. You can talk with Kia about what is the plan if the perpetrator comes to the workplace. What to do if the person's harassing the employee at work, so bringing him on the work phone all the time. How can the employees safely attend and leave work? Like perhaps it would be a great measure to make sure that they're safely escorted to their car before and after their shift. So again, I don't want to do the concept of the domestic and family violence safety plan any injustice by summarising it, but just a few very quick tips about why such a thing is important, and you should really if you have an employee in that situation, please seek further advice around how to safely support them at work. Yeah, just another example there from the survey. My perpetrator would come to my workplace even when requested not to do that. He constantly contacted me on my work email address. I was always home for alert whenever the doors opened or when a car would come into the car. I was a nervous wreck. So yeah, it may not even be a physical intrusion into the workplace. It may be calls, texts, all sorts of things. So yeah, again, I think it's really important as a takeaway from this to think about implementing a domestic and family violence strategy. And these are, again, the kind of thing that can be covered in further training, but really, but it's good to have these things in place so you know immediately what to do, and so your co-workers or employees, if someone discloses this violence to you. So it will raise awareness of it as a workplace issue. It will provide support for people who are affected at work. It can also help you deal with what to know if you realise that an employee of yours is actually the perpetrator of the violence. How do you deal with that situation? It also will help to meet your work health and safety and obligations under the Fair Work Act, etc. And like I said at the beginning, it's so clear that continued and secure work is important to the person escaping the violence. That connection with work, that ongoing financial security, and it's also obviously of benefit to you as well from not only supporting that employee, but minimizing the impact it has on your business, as well as the other workers and colleagues in the business as well. So remember that you have the fundamental obligation to provide a safe and healthy workplace for your employees. So you need to protect your other employees as well. Yeah, as the person experiencing the violence. So just a really great quote there as well. My work saved me. I could focus on it. It was my strength. I worked almost every day, and I had a couple of really close friends at work. So work really can be the thread that can keep someone's lives together if they have that constant safe place to come to help them escape what's going on in their personal lives. I just also wanted to mention as well the idea of vicarious trauma. Again, a very huge topic that could do a lot more training on, but just recognizing that if you do receive a disclosure of violence, to make sure that you're looking after yourself as well. So it can be distressing and challenging for both the person who's giving the disclosure and the person that's experiencing it. So and as well, that would be the case for any co-workers who are also receiving these disclosures. So it's really important as well to have those strategies in place, things like employee assistance programs or support lines, readily available to your employees to help and yourself, support to help you deal with these disclosures as well. So I think we're almost at the end of this presentation, but again, I just wanted to flag that we do have other packages available for your workplaces, specifically helping you deal with when violence comes to work. Recognize, respond, and refer is the White Ribbon accredited training, as well as workplace equity and respect, and other training such as sexual harassment and workplace bullying. So if you are interested, please do have a look at our website and contact us for more information about those training packages. We'd love to have a chat with you. And yes, I'm holding another webinar next week. It's a more general workplace checkup for small businesses. So it will cover a range of things to keep in mind when your broad kind of obligations to your employees, such as making sure you pay people correctly, what to do if you need to do a disciplinary meeting or if you need to fire someone. It's just really giving you a kind of a checkup on whether your workplace is safe and healthy for your employees to thrive. Also, are you meeting your obligations if something goes wrong and you need to deal with workplace bullying or an employee that's not performing. So please do spread the word and sign up for that one. Oh yeah, and as well, we also provide consultation on your policies. So if you were to develop a domestic and family violence strategy and you wanted our views on it, we'd be happy to facilitate that for you. So again, contact us. Yeah, check out our website and our social media. We'll be doing more of these website webinars next year, or some other kind of support for small businesses. So please do check out our website and keep in touch. And yeah, that's it. So thank you so much for your attendance here today. I will send out a feedback form and I send out the recording of this session. If you have any other questions or want to find out more about the training, then please get in touch. Thank you so much.